What you doing, podcast? I'm the AC, and I am very thrilled to introduce my guest co-host for this podcast.
Bria Lexor.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we start, Bria?
Yes, I'm a young adult urban fantasy author. I also write fantasy and paranormal romance books.
Cool. Um, Now, before we actually start the podcast, let me introduce myself in case you do not know who I am. Like I said, I am the AC. I also dabble in some writing. I have nothing published yet, but mainly I've been doing a lot of YouTube stuff, this podcast, of course, other little things to amuse myself. I'm based out of Hawaii, so a lot of my content has to do with maybe some vlogs and stuff like that. Also, am a master's student, so I deal with stuff like that. But yeah, overall, I have decided to move this podcast in a direction that focuses more on authors, indie authors, just writing in general. And mainly because, like I said, I like to write. I haven't published anything yet, but I do like also getting in touch with other authors. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And I'm glad to say that Bria is going to be the first of these authors I will be talking to in my podcast. So, Bria, what are some books you've written? I know you've written a lot. I've went and looked through them. I haven't been able to read too much yet because, as I said, you're the first, and you've written too many for me to read in a week. I'm working on it though. But yeah, what are some books you've written?
I've written a Gargoyle Shifter trilogy, vampires. See, there's so many aliens, shamans, just different mixes of everything.
Oh yes, I know. Um, One we're going to be talking a lot more is what you said your most recent is the Flames Omen, the lyric Lockheart Story. If this came out in June, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And you said it's also the prequel to one of your vampire series, the Vampiracy Hell's Guardians Chronicles. So we're going to
Yes.
talk more about that in a bit. But before we actually talk about the book and what you were in, I like to get to know what are your inspirations, how you become a writer, and all this other kind of stuff that as a writer eventually gets put into what you write. So, like I said, I guess my first question is when did you start writing and how?
I started writing back in 2010. I wanted to see if I could write a book, and that's when the Gargoyle series came to me. And my inspirations were S.D. Perry, the author of the Resident Evil series.
Hmm,
Let's see, there's a few others, but that's my main one.
cool. Yeah, Resident Evil is great. Um, so, especially, I'm a huge fan of horror stuff. I guess that's why I'm interested in authors that do a lot of like horror stuff that involves like vampires and all that stuff. Also, I've noticed you have with so many books, you also have different pen names under the books. Um, kind
Yes.
of first, I guess I'm asking is Bria Lexor one of your pen names, or is that
Yes. That's
okay?
the
Cool.
most recent one.
Um, so your Gargoyle series is under the name Isabella Treadway, um, and
Yes.
you also have. I'm not exactly sure. I can't remember how you define the genre, but like the sports, wrestling, the game genre, romance genre, you have the name under
Uh,
Landra.
Alondra Hensley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a process for how you pick your pen names, or is it just kind of a random name you thought was cool?
No, I go online and just go through different names, and whatever I put together and it sounds good, then I'll use it.
Cool. I like that. I know a lot of people when they pick names, have meanings and stuff. But I'm kind of like you, except for I'm probably worse actually. I like to just pick names that sound cool. I like meaning is cool, um, but I not only do I just pick names I think sound cool. Sometimes they're just random mashed up letters. Sometimes it seems like I name my characters weird things. Uh, VAC kind of is a pen name. It's just my initials, and I threw D at the beginning of it. But I'm not a very creative person when it comes to names, is what I'm saying. Um, but yeah, how long have you been using Bria Lexor?
That's more recent, so probably 2 years.
Hmm. And is this you pretty much just use a different pen name for like the different genres to kind of distinguish?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. I've seen plenty of authors do that too. So I figured that's what was typical. Um, yeah. I also noticed you're a wrestling fan since you have a whole different pen name for your wrestling romance. Sorry, before what do you call that genre? Before I ramble on about the name,
That's sports romance.
sports romance. Okay, simple enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
I suck at names, like I said, so I always mix stuff up. But yeah, um, your wrestling. How did your wrestling interest begin?
My brother got me into it when I was a freshman, and he turned it on one day and he goes, "Yeah, let's watch this." And I was like, "Okay." So I've been hooked since.
Yeah, I when I was I don't know, I guess a young kid, I loved wrestling too. It was great. Probably up until through middle school, I was as much as I could for who I knew. Was pretty big in wrestling. I mainly like playing the games. I just as a kid thought watching the fighting was cool. I kind of lost that interest or just forgot about it as I grew up. And then more recently, I've seen more people posting of wrestling. There was that movie come out, Final Family or something like that. Wrestling Family. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, Page's movie.
Yeah, and stuff like that. So I don't know if it's because I'm starting to get the interest back, or it's just because there actually is more interest going into wrestling. But yeah, I've been getting more into it. I've been seeing more people talk about it. It's really cool, really entertaining. But do you put? How does your interest in wrestling? Because I see you post stuff about it quite a bit, so that's why I'm asking. But how does the inspiration from that get included into what you write?
I just wanted to bring the concept of like people wrestling like and put it into like a character form, so that I even made a fictional wrestling company
Hmm.
for it.
Now we know a bit of your inspirations, a bit of why you started or writing and your interest in wrestling, and all the many books you've written. I decided to focus on your most latest one, The Flames Omen. I have looked a little bit into Vampiracy, Hell's Guardians Chronicles, just enough to know a little bit what's coming. But yeah, let's just talk a little bit about this. What is The Flames Omen?
It's about the character Lyric Lockhart. She's one of the characters in the the other books, but this one focuses on her, like how she became a vampire. So that goes through her transition into a vampire from a human.
Hmm. Okay. Um, so anyone listening to this, some of the questions are going to be asking may be a little spoily. I'm going to try not to be too spoily, but I like talking about the things I like reading. So of course I'm going to talk about the parts of the book I do like, but just a little um, spoiler alert for some of you watching. Um, so you talked about how you inspired by Resident Evil. In this book, I definitely saw a lot of similarities. Not enough to be like, oh yeah, this is, but the hints, the subtleness in it, because we have this pretty much a company that just pretty much ruins the city with zombies. that it's hinted at a little bit. Were there any other inspirations from Resident Evil that gets directly put into this book?
Um, no, I just wanted the like zombie kind of stuff a little bit, and like the virus. So like not really a lot.
Yeah. I admit I started writing a zombie novel like 8 years ago. That was also loosely inspired by Resident Evil and other things. Also, like the movie, this second quarantine movie, and well, just all kinds of Walking Dead stuff. Anything zombie pretty much inspires me because I love zombies. So I was really excited when I started reading this, and it was like, oh, I knew it was going to involve vampires. I didn't realize there was going to be zombies, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Uh, a book that mixes zombies and vampires and other things. There's other creatures. There's gargoyles and too. There's all kinds of other creatures. And it's a really cool way to do this. And it's not even. It's like in some completely fictional world. It's pretty much based in like real United States. There's a lot of references to just real everyday things. And I think that's cool. You said it's urban fantasy. What's your decision to keep it in this real reality instead of just keeping it in a completely fictional cities?
I just wanted to make it more realistic.
Yeah,
So like I use like real cities and stuff in it.
I like that. I try to. That's one of the things I struggle with deciding when I write is where do I want it to be set? Do I want it to take place in these real cities with real names? Do I want to make up cities? Do I want it to just be in a completely unidentifiable place at all? So I waver with that, but I do like when stories take place in what is a real world, and then you add these like fantasy, these monster kind of lore into it, because it makes you wonder. It's like, oh, could these things really just be out in the real world, hiding among us? You'd like that mystery that could be in reality. Uh, another another thing I really think is cool that you did is you give um, Larry not only um, the ability to control fire, which is I assume is what the name of the book comes from, the Flames Omen. Does that have to do with her ability to control fire?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Making sure. But she also has these visions, and a lot of
Mhm.
times uh, it's gets it, I'm not confused. I guess if you're not paying attention, it could confuse you. But while you're reading, parts are happening, and then it turns out to all be a vision. And then it's like she goes right back almost to square one. Um, and I think that's a really cool concept. It's like a do over. But it also reminds me a little bit of the anime ReZero, how he dies and he restarts, except for it's not as extreme in Lyric's case. Where does the idea for her have these super real visions to last a pretty long time just to restart and her have to do it all over again?
I just wanted to give her just like psychic abilities and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, well, I'll make her, kind of unique, and so she's able to just go like, see different parts of a scenario.
Hmm, cool. Yeah, like I said, it adds a bit of a mystery. It adds kind of a uh, what am I trying to say? Like you don't know what could be real and what not. So it keeps you like guessing. It's like, oh, is this all going to be real? Is this really happening to her? And sometimes maybe not. It was a vision. Maybe it is happening, and it's a really bad situation that she has to find her way out. And I like this, like kind of edge of your seat guessing, kind of being like, oh, I don't know what's going to actually happen. This, and no, it's a really fun thing to include in a story. Another another fun thing for me uh, was this. love square between Lyric, Chaos, Abel, Kevin. Um, and in a sense, it's I guess people call it a reverse harem. I just call it a regular harem. Lyric has these three other guys uh, fighting for her. First off, I just want your opinion on a whole. It's kind of a just a dumb argument I have. Is there a real difference between a harem and a reverse harem? I'll just say, here's my argument. Like I said, completely dumb. A harem is the when the focus is on the one person instead of the group, and I'll say a reverse harem should be when the focus is on the group and not the one person. Because a lot of it makes no sense to me that a reverse harem should just be when it's one girl or multiple guys. It's a dumb argument, but while you're here, I just want to know if that argument makes any sense to you.
I didn't think about it. I just when I write, I just write. So like whatever comes out comes out.
Yeah, I know. I like. There's a lot of just dumb arguments I have with myself. And I was like, does this even make sense to a normal person? To me, it makes sense. But yeah, stuff like that. I was like, I should bring this question up to see, just to say I did. But yeah, no, this love square that's going on. Man, Abel was just really into it. Um, Cadman was too, but he was more chill with it. And then of course, like it Lyra makes it really clear, like she wants to be with Chaos. And the time where they're like, she has 4 days to decide who she wants to be with, and she's just like, yeah, it's gonna be Chaos. And they're like, okay, well, you have 4 days. Go on a date with all of them. I was just like, that was a kind of a funny moment you would see in like a rom com kind of situation. And it was I mean, while it lasted, it was kind of a nice light moment for the book. Uh, but yeah, you're. It's a really action heavy book. It's packed with stuff always happening all the time. There are hardly any times where it slowed down, and when it does, it doesn't last that long. Um, yeah, where does all the action come from?
Um, I like with every single book I write, I want to make sure I start off and get the readers, like their interest into the story. So pretty much every single book I write, it starts with action.
Yeah, it just jumps right into it. It's really cool. Um, then, so now I guess my question is, well, those were some of the big things I talked about. Of course, like I said, it starts with them talking about zombies. It ends with them talking about zombies. Um, how does this? I haven't been able to read the rest of the series yet, but how does this um, continue into the rest of the series?
She Lyric has a daughter, and she gets her same abilities. And so the series picks up with her daughter starting at a different school because those people found them, so they had to move.
Yeah. Now I don't know this. I don't know the best way to ask this question. How important is Lyric in the rest of the series?
She's not, well, I don't want to say not a main character, but she's like she's still in there, but the rest of the series focuses on her daughter.
Mm. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to after this getting the more time to read the rest of the series. But the other thing is, at the beginning, you talk about Lyric's past of the zombies and all this stuff. Um, was there ever any plan to write more about what happened before the Flames Omen happened? Like, I guess
Yeah,
was there plans for a prequel to a prequel?
yeah, I wanted to write about her when she was a person and like all that stuff happened. So like more horrors for that one. But yeah, I wanted to do a series for that.
Mm. So, is there any I don't know. I don't know what your plans are. This is just me as a fan being like, oh, I wonder what's happening in between. So, in between the Flames Omen and the first book of Vampiracy, um, is there plans to write about that, or can you do they talk a bit about that in the series about what happens in this in between? Oh,
No, I just jumped right into the first book.
okay,
So
cool,
I didn't, yeah.
cool, cool. Uh, okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where the rest of these books go. I mean, I know they're already written. You're done with that. Why did you decide to write a prequel story for Lyric in the first place?
Um, it was one of my first books I wrote, so I just, it was before I decided to write the vampire series. I just, wanted to see if I could write something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it turned out well. I keep saying it, but I haven't read the rest of the series, and the book by itself stands alone. It's not like you need to know what happens in the rest of the series to read this book. You can read this book by itself, and it's going to be completely fine. So I like that about that. I like when prequel books are standalone things, and you don't have to rely on knowledge from the original series. So I thought that's a really cool way to do it. Uh, yeah. What were, I guess, your favorite parts of the book? Maybe your favorite thing to write? I know it's like maybe picking. It's like picking a favorite child, but it's like picking a favorite moment from a book.
Uh, hmm, I don't know. I guess when she got to the headquarters.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the first
When
time
she
when
first got
she,
there. Yeah, when she first got there and met all the vampire characters.
it was cool. Um, I guess. Oh, that reminds me. So before she actually meets Chaos and Velvet and the whole agency, were was there any clue that all these other creatures existed to her? Is that something she was kind of aware of, or she just completely had no idea? Like, is this something like her brothers that they are vaguely aware of, or they just completely had no idea until this book?
Oh, yeah, they had no idea.
Okay.
Because the Abel character, he's the main character in my Gargoyle series, so I just like merged him.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Oh,
like
okay,
that's
that's
what
cool.
I do. I merge characters in my
No,
other books.
no, I think that's really cool. I like the whole idea of like I mean a universe or a world where all these books are somehow connected. I think that's really cool. I thought about doing that with my series, but they're so different that it'll be harder to. Cause, and also, I've started a lot of stuff and just never finished. So it's also harder to do when you don't finish stuff. But yeah, no. Oh, that's really cool. Because the next thing I was wanting to talk about was gargoyles, just gargoyles in general. Because I've never really seen much gargoyles in like medias or shows or stuff like that. Besides like the gargoyles cartoon, I guess a long time ago at this point, and I've seen them in some video games. What got your interest in writing a series with gargoyles and Abel and all this?
And well, that was the first series I wanted to write, and I wanted to pick a character that people really didn't write about at the time. There's a lot more Gargoyle books out there now, but at that time there was like barely anything. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna run with this idea.
Yeah, no, I mean you're right. I haven't seen really anything gargoyle, so I thought it was really cool when I saw that you had a whole gargoyle series, which I'm going to look into more also. But yeah, I don't know why they're a really cool thing. Once I saw that, it got me interested in looking up more stuff about gargoyles, and there's just a whole architecture thing, and then there's the lore of that. yeah, it's a shame there aren't more things about it. But then I guess if it gets too mainstream, then it'll be I don't know, it'll take this whole turn of like being less cool. I don't know. The whole like gothic
Yeah.
aesthetic and literature thing is always really cool to me. So yeah, no, I was glad to see that there was um, talk about gargoyles. Did you do a lot of research into what gargoyles are, or you just took like the common knowledge of gargoyles?
I did a little bit of research. It was more common knowledge, and I was like, okay, it's fictional anyway, so I'll just run with it.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I haven't read too much about gargoyles in literature, but did you do any unique takes on gargoyles that you haven't seen other people do before? Did you add any lore to them that's all your own?
Um, yeah, just I guess the way I wrote the main character, the Abel, how I created him. That's pretty much all my own stuff.
Cool. That's really cool. But yeah, you have a lot of other books. If this is going back to like trying to pick a favorite child, but if you was to recommend for anyone to start on reading your books, what would be the first book you would recommend them to read?
Um, dang, I like a lot.
Yeah,
Probably my fantasy one, the Onizuca series. That one, it's the first three stories. They're all short, but I put the first three stories into one book, so you're like able to, go ahead and get a little jump on that one.
yeah, yeah. I saw that one. That before you, I asked about Flames Omen. That was going to be the other series I was going to try to read first because I saw it was already compiled like that. I was like, okay, I can cover more stories if it's like this. But no, yeah, I like covering things that are more recent because it is what you've done most. And I was like, oh, maybe she'll want to talk about this since it's, I assume, what's as far as what's been published, the thing more recently on your mind. Um, so yeah, you recommend that is would that be your favorite, or do you have an actual favorite book of everything you've written?
Um, I like a lot of what I write, so it would be between that one and the first Crimson Savior, the vampire book, the first one. Like,
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Um, are you working on anything else you like can hint at or you want to just mention right now?
um, I'm trying to work on three different books. The last book in the Vampiracy Hell's Guardian Chronicles, I wrote it, but I didn't like how it went, so I'm trying to rewrite that and
Oh,
start the spin-off series to that.
oh, a whole spin-off series. What
Yep.
is what would the spin-off series be about? Do you have an idea of that?
Just it would be continuing the series, but it would be about Zyra's daughter.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
You just keep the family going.
characters.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, no, that makes me even more excited to see what happens in the books. Then I like knowing stuff like that. It's really cool. But yeah, um, but yeah. Let's see. What about your sports? I forgot the sports romance books. When you approaching this as like as a different persona as Alondra Hensley, is there any kind of different process for this, or is it just kind of the same mindset?
That one, no, that one's way different. I had it's a little bit harder because I don't have access to talking to the professional wrestlers or anything, but I get the behind the scenes kind of stuff. So that's why I try to watch whatever I can.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's harder.
yeah. No, that's cool. It's good. It's cool to see authors that branch out for different genres too. Though I write a lot of short stories, so I like this experimental part of writing that is easy to do with short stories because you can do all kinds of different genres, different ways to write. Um, have you done much with short stories?
Um, Not many, just the Gargoyle trilogy is the short stories, and the Onizuca ones I have to write three to put in one book. So those are like the only short ones I have.
Mm, that's cool. Yeah. I've started novels, but I have so many ideas that pop up in my head. I'm like, maybe if I just did like a quick little short story, however long that would end up being, at least get the idea out of my mind. But no, it's really cool how you're able to uh, write so many books and them be good. So it's really cool. But yeah, no, I think this was a good conversation. Before we go though, I mean, are there any of your socials or anything you want to plug?
Yeah, my Facebook, I have an author page on there. Twitter, Instagram, I'm pretty much everywhere.
And what would that be under? All under Bria Lexor?
Yeah, and there's one under. Well, I have one on Facebook for each pen name, so
Okay,
they can go like those.
cool. Yeah, and I'll get all those links and I'll put them in the description for this podcast, so it'll be easy to find you. And I know you do have a lot. I've been looking through your website with all those books. So yeah, it's a good way to find all the stuff you've written. But yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and plug my own socials too. Um, it's pretty much the AC stories for any of you listening. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and my YouTube is all the AC stories. My Instagram though, a little bit different. It's the underscore AC underscore stories because somebody beat me to that one on there. But yeah, you can find me there. You can find Bria and all the links I'll provide in the description. But yeah, no, it's been a really cool conversation about you. It's really cool to talk to authors about the stuff they're written and their inspirations, especially their inspirations, because everyone seems to be inspired by different things. It's good to know like where all these ideas are coming from in their book. I mean, no, thank you so much, Bria, for joining me on my podcast, for being my first guest co-host author to be on here with me. It's been so cool.
Thank you.
But yeah, so and thank everyone for listening, for watching if you're watching the video version. But I'm the AC. Bye.